AITA for telling a church group to leave the restaurant after I heard their prayer? Throwaway just in case. So I had to 1F work at a small restaurant filled with locals and church groups who frequent the restaurant quite often. For context, I'm in a relationship with someone I met at the restaurant, and most of the people here know that. On to the story. This afternoon I had a church group of 8 come in. I know them all by name. 2 in particular are Josh and his son Adam, who wasn't in attendance today. Everything is going fine. Normal conversation is flowing, and at the end they asked me to join hands with them in prayer. I don't practice any religion, but for my customers I bow my head in respect, let them say their prayer, and finish off with an amen. That didn't happen today. Josh started the prayer, and as we near the end I feel him squeeze my hand a little and say, "And Jesus, we ask you to free this beautiful young lady from her ties to another man for my boy Adam. I know in my heart and with you that they are meant to be together, but don't want it to happen in sin. Again I ask you to please free this woman from her." I stopped listening at this point, pulled my hand away, and left the table. I got Adam's number from a mutual friend of ours and called him to ask WTF his group was on about. He was very apologetic and told me that he had a crush on me way back when I first started to work at the restaurant almost 2 years ago at this point that is long gone, as he knew we had different beliefs, along with wanting to still come to the restaurant without any awkward tension. Apparently, his dad took this little crush and effing ran with it. He told me at church that his group prays about this all the time and that he doesn't attend as much because of it, along with the fact that their preacher even mentioned it a couple times during group prayer. I guess he called his dad because he came up to me and berated me for interrupting his prayer and for calling Adam to tell on him. I told him his prayer made me very uncomfortable as I'm secure in my relationship and will never step out in favor of Adam. I said I don't know what you think praying about it will do, but no form of any God would ask me to leave my partner in your favor to make you and only you happy. You and anyone else actively participating in your fucked up fantasy can leave. So they did. Our owner knows these people well and also attends the same church, so obviously she heard about it. She told me that she knows I have different beliefs, but not to talk to people that wait in the restaurant, as it's a bad look on her as well. I apologize for the hurtful words I used, but I will not let anyone think that praying for me to leave my partner will work, nor will I stand being directly disrespected in a group of people like that. AITA, edit, update for info. My boss wasn't ignoring what happened. She was more upset that I cursed at people in the restaurant and caused a scene. She was fully on my side when she found out what happened. I spoke to her today about it, and she said she spoke to Josh and he was under the impression that my relationship wasn't serious since we've only been together since January. As for it being mentioned at church, I called the church to speak to someone about it and got their pastor, priest? I'm not sure the difference honestly. He said it was mentioned during group prayer, but not in the setting I was thinking. He said when they did pray about it, they prayed for Adam to find someone special, that I was never mentioned by name, which I suspect is a lie. He apologized for the group, said they were so far over the line that he'll be having a conversation with them about what is and isn't appropriate for prayer because what they were praying for wasn't prayer, that it was a form of coercion and it was unacceptable. I also spoke to Adam again today, and he apologized again for what happened. Said he was utterly embarrassed and humiliated. He said he understands not wanting him or his family at the restaurant anymore, but I don't call those shots. He said he'll get Josh to apologize, but we'll see how long that takes. I said I'll accept his apology if it's genuine. I'll gladly apologize for the hurtful words I used, but I will not apologize for standing up for myself or my relationship. Some people want to know why I joined their prayer. Most of the people who come into the restaurant are lovely people. I have no problem joining their prayer if they ask. I never speak during them. I simply bow my head in respect and say amen at the end. Some even prayed for me and my well-being when they found out about some problems in my life. Most are just blessing the food or prayer for someone's health, etc. This has never been an issue with anyone until yesterday. Thank you all for being so supportive and educating me on what is and isn't appropriate for prayer and telling me what exactly it was that he was trying to accomplish. I appreciate you all. Story 1. I found out my wife had an affair years ago, and she never told me. She says it doesn't matter anymore, but I can't let it go. AITA, my wife 34F and I 36M have been married for 8 years, together for 10. We've built a good life together, happy, or so I thought. Recently, while we were going through some old messages on her laptop, she asked me to help her find an email. I stumbled upon some old texts between her and a guy from work. They were flirty, way too flirty, and when I dug a bit deeper, I realized she had an affair with this guy about 6 years ago, while we were married. I was shocked. She never mentioned this before, not even during the few rocky periods we had early on in our marriage. When I confronted her, she admitted it right away. She said it was a stupid mistake, that it was brief, and that she ended it because she felt horrible about it. She said it was a tough time in our marriage and claimed she didn't want to hurt me by bringing it up later, especially because it meant nothing and she's been committed to me ever since. Here's the thing, I can't stop thinking about it. It doesn't feel like it's in the past to me, even though she insists it's irrelevant now. She says I'm overreacting and that I need to move on because we're stronger now, and this was years ago. But the trust I thought we had feels shattered. I'm torn because I still love her, but I don't know if I can get past the fact that she kept this from me for so long. She says it's ancient history, but to me, it feels like it just happened. Am I the asshole for not being able to let this go, even though it happened years ago and she says it doesn't matter anymore? Story 2. AITA for challenging my best friend to a bake-off after she called my cookies basic. So, I 27F love baking and often bring cookies to our weekly game nights. Recently, I made my signature chocolate chip cookies classic, but delicious. When I took them out, my friend, Sarah, took one bite and dramatically exclaimed, "Ooh, these are so basic. You need to get more creative with your baking." I was taken aback. I mean, who doesn't love a good chocolate chip cookie? But instead of getting offended, I decided to challenge her to a bake-off. I suggested we each bake a batch of cookies, and everyone at game night would vote for the winner. She laughed it off, but I was serious. I wanted to show her that sometimes simplicity is key. The day of the bake-off arrives, and I put my heart into my cookies, while Sarah goes all out with an extravagant match-infused, gluten-free, vegan cookie that looked like it came straight out of a fancy bakery. The taste, let's just say it was ... interesting. When the voting happened, my cookies won by a landslide, and the group had a blast. However, now Sarah's upset, claiming I made her look bad and that I shouldn't have turned her comment into a competition. AITA for calling her out and showing her that basic can still be better than whatever she whipped up. Story 3. AITA for suing my ex-boyfriend for getting me pregnant and then leaving. So, this whole situation has been weighing on me for a while, and I feel like I need some outside perspective. My ex-boyfriend and I were together for about 2 years. Everything seemed fine, but things started to shift when I got a big promotion at work. He started making little comments about how I was leaving him behind or how my career was becoming more important than our relationship. I brushed it off at first, but it became clear that he resented me for it. A few months later, I found out I was pregnant. I was shocked because we had always been careful, but when I told him, his reaction was beyond strange. He didn't seem happy or upset, just smug. When I pressed him about why he seemed so off, he finally admitted that he had been trying to get me pregnant, without my knowledge, to slow me down. He literally told me that he thought I was too focused on work and that having a baby would bring me back down to reality. I was devastated. I had so many plans for my career and life, and suddenly everything was flipped upside down. Fast forward to our baby being born. She's a month old now, and he just up and left. He hasn't come to see her, hasn't offered any support, nothing. I'm a single mom, and he's out there living his life without a care in the world. I decided to sue him for child support and other damages because I feel like he deliberately sabotaged my life and left me to pick up the pieces. My friends are split. Some think I'm doing the right thing, while others say I should just focus on raising my baby and move on. But I can't shake the feeling that he did this intentionally to ruin everything I had worked for. AITA for suing him? Story 4. AITA if I go no contact with my sister and mom for disrespecting my wishes for my baby funeral. I-24F recently had baby that passed a few months ago. We just had the funeral the other day. I specifically told my mom I wanted my partner and I to be the only ones wearing white and for everyone else to wear the color blue or black. While on a call with my aunt, it slipped out that my mom would be wearing white. I was highly upset because my mom always does stuff like this and likes to be in control, and I'm a very non-confrontational person on a whole, but also because how she acts when I do address her. She also did not come to my gender reveal because she was mad at me and she was the keeper of the gender, and said she would not come unless I apologized to her. The day of the funeral, I sent a reminder to everyone if they didn't have the color blue, please just wear black. My mom responded and said okay. She still showed up in white despite my wishes. Later on in the day after the funeral, I went to eat with mutual friends and my partner. I went on Snapchat and saw that my sister 18F had posted my son's face. I have no proper pictures of him when he was alive, so I had a photographer come and take photos of him the day before the funeral so that we could have something to place on the funeral monitor and on an easel. My partner and I agreed that we would never post a picture of our baby's face out of respect. When I saw that my sister posted this picture, it had already been up for an hour at this time. I immediately called her and told her to please take down the post. She said she was not home and she was out eating at a restaurant. I checked her location. She was home, so she lied. I called her again and she ignored my call but messaged me to show me that she had taken it down off Snapchat. I lost my composure and I snapped. I said to her, how dare she post my child without my permission. Even I have never posted my child's face out of respect and because I didn't want people to have access to seeing him like that. Between you and Mom, I don't know what is wrong with you guys. She did not respond. I was speaking to one of my friends about the situation and she told me my sister posted it on her Instagram story too. I went to look at her Instagram story but could not find her page. I asked my friend to please send me the screenshot. My sister had blocked me entirely from her Instagram, and she had that post up for longer than the Snapchat one. She had it up for 3 hours. After this, I blocked her. And I called her boyfriend to tell her to please take it down and to never post anything like this again. Please be kind. I cannot handle any rude comments at this time. Would I be wrong to go no contact? Story 5. AITA for recording my wife without her consent? So, this happened a couple of days ago, and honestly, I'm not sure if I went too far. My wife 29F and I 31M got into a massive argument. It started out over something small, like chores or bills I can't even remember, to be honest, but it escalated fast. She was getting really worked up, like full-on screaming at me, and I admit, I was yelling too. Here's where I might have messed up. My wife has a habit of saying really nasty stuff when we argue, and in the past, she said things like, I never said that, or you're twisting my words when I bring it up later. So, in the middle of this fight, I decided to record her on my phone. I didn't think it was a big deal. I just wanted some sort of proof of what she was saying in case she tried to deny it later. I wasn't trying to use it against her or anything, just to have my side straight. Well, she immediately noticed what I was doing, and it made her even angrier. She has had anger issues in the past. She even went to therapy for it. She started screaming at me for recording her without permission, saying it was a huge violation of trust. Then, out of nowhere, she grabs my phone and literally chucks it out the window. We live on the 3rd floor, so yeah, the phone's toast. At that point, I was fuming. I didn't say anything and just walked out to cool off. I'm out of phone now, and she's acting like I'm the one who crossed the line by recording her. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, especially since she was the one who started making threats and saying some pretty nasty stuff. But now she's saying I'm the off for betraying her privacy in our own home. Some of my friends think I was justified because no one should be saying things they're afraid to be held accountable for. But others think recording your spouse during an argument is a huge red flag, and I shouldn't have done it no matter what. So, AITA for recording her during our fight, even though it led to her throwing my phone out the window. Should I have just let it go? Update: I didn't think I'd be writing this so soon. But here we are. After everything that happened with the phone incident, I figured it was time to have an actual conversation with my wife and see if we could settle things like adults. I got home, and surprisingly, she was acting calm, like she actually wanted to talk. I thought, maybe this is finally going to be different. We sat down, and I started explaining where I was coming from. She was nodding along, not yelling or interrupting, which was already a huge improvement. I actually felt hopeful for a minute. Things were going all right until I mentioned that I wouldn't be able to buy her that designer bag she's been hinting about for months. The thing is, after she destroyed my phone, I needed to get a new one, and that's not exactly cheap. So I brought it up, saying I need to use the money I had set aside for the bag to replace my phone. And that's when all hell broke loose. The second I said it, her entire demeanor changed. She went from calm to absolutely losing it in seconds. She started screaming at me, saying I'm selfish and that I never do anything for her, which is complete BS. She was throwing things around the room, knocking stuff off the table, and basically having a full-on meltdown. I tried to stay calm at first, but it was like everything we talked about just went out the window the second she didn't get what she wanted. I tried to reason with her, but it was like talking to a wall. She was screaming about how I was ruining her life over a stupid phone. I ended up shouting back, but after a couple of minutes, I just couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my car keys, told her I was done with this, and walked out. I needed to clear my head and get away from the chaos. Now, she's been blowing up my phone, sending me dozens of messages, calling nonstop, saying things like, "How could you do this to me? You're abandoning me." She's flipping between apologizing and blaming me for everything. I've blocked her for now because I just can't deal with it anymore. The divorce is final. I cannot deal with her anymore. Story 6. AITA for leaving at night without telling him after his sister bullied me and I had to defend myself.
I, F27, have been living with my partner, Finn, M35, since last summer when my lease ended. He's been very supportive throughout challenges in my career, and moving with him helped me save money on a new lease. I just finished my PhD in science and had to stay an additional semester as I'm collaborating for a project. When Finn's lease ended, we decided to settle in the city where my collaboration project will be launched.
He asked his family, and they agreed to let us stay for 2 months until we left. Neither of us owned furniture or anything since we sold it off. I paid them rent, and so did he. My situation with his family turned bitter pretty fast. I noticed deodorant skid marks on a shirt of mine, and also a scent not sweat, just perfume that doesn't belong to me on a lace blouse. So somebody had been wearing my clothes. I went to him, and he dismissed it as me exaggerating. Maybe I was wrong, but I said he was enabling his family, and he got very offended. I resorted to putting all my belongings back inside my luggage and locking it, and it never happened again. His sister definitely caused trouble between us. She told him that I looked at her like she was less, and he came to me with that. I find her scary, and I'm non-confrontational, but I can fight back if I have to. After that, I got snide remarks and indirect aggression from Mill and Sil. Sil prides herself on having hit her exes, how she beat her brothers up, how she dragged one woman by the hair back in her 20s. The family acts like she's quite a strong woman, and they treat her like she's all that. What happened last week was horrible, and I ended up crying. So Sil walked into the living room with a very pretty blouse, very similar to one that I own. It wasn't mine. I might have shown a bad facial expression because she confronted me immediately. We had never had a direct confrontation before. She came at me and said I was accusing her of stealing. I was sitting down, and she got into my face and pressed her knees against my legs, and I couldn't move properly. Finn told her to stop, but took no real action. So she leaned over, and I pushed her by the chest to keep her away, and she started screaming at me and squaring off. She poked me with her finger, and I freaked out and swung at her and slapped her because she did walk towards me when I got up. I managed to get out of the living room and lock myself in our room. Finn never came to check on me. When I came out hours later, still looked like she had been crying. After that, no one has ever said a word to me, not to scold me and not to comfort me. Finn has not spoken a word, not even when we were alone. He won't answer when I talk to him, and it hurts a lot. I moved with him because I'm broke, and he did me a huge favor. I'm getting my first payment from the research project this week, and that reimburses my own expenses and the money that I put into the project. I do have funds in the bank from my part-time job that I kept until September. I don't feel great about this, but I left while everyone was sleeping. I had promised Finn that I would help him start a business once I started getting my checks. I had confirmation of payment 2 weeks ago, and a new contract cleared. I thought we would enjoy this as a couple, but I think it's a lot to reconsider. I'm very grateful for everything that he's done, but at the same time, he didn't have my back. I don't have a strong frame, and his sister is taller than me. I think I lucked out getting out of that situation, but she could have gone crazy and messed me up. He never got up, and Mel said nothing. I feel lonely and have been crying, and the reason I left is that I don't want to cry in front of them. I know it's petty, but I also don't want to help him because I know he wanted to help his family, and after what happened, I don't want them to benefit from me, even indirectly. I'm staying at a motel. I have enough funds, but Finn doesn't have a job, and I'm literally lurching him. I love him, but I don't want to get into a family like his. On the one hand, I earned this money with my efforts. He was morally supportive, but I paid for my own education. On the other hand, we made plans based on following my career, and I'm making the decision to end things. We never had fights, but he did change sometimes when near his family. I know his sister's actions are her own. Maybe he was in shock. Any advice is helpful. AITA Stories 7. AITA for telling my wife that my life would be better without her. My wife Anne and I have been married for 13 years. I am 43, and she is 46. We do not have children. When we first began dating, nobody could make me happy like Anne. She always seemed to know exactly the right thing to say to me when I was down. But over the past decade or so, she has really started to show her true colors, and a lot of what her ex-husband said to me about her has begun to make more sense. For example, I have a very high-stress job. People bring me problems, and I fix those problems. But when I get home, 9 times out of 10, and just has more problems to throw onto my plate. She doesn't work, so she's free to do anything she wants to solve said problems during the day. But lately she has even begun making lists of things that she wants me to do after I work all day. Last Friday, I had a horrible day. There was an enormous problem at work that basically all fell on my shoulders to solve. When I was crossing the street after work, I had a green signal, and a bicycle blew through a red and side-clipped me. The cyclist yelled expletives at me and then rode away. I thought about calling the police because it was technically a hit-and-run, but there was probably nothing they could do. When I got home, desperate, I talked to Anne about what happened. She listened and then immediately took the cyclist's side. I reiterated that the cyclist ran through a red light, to which she responded that cyclists aren't obligated to stop. When I told her she was wrong and tried to put the issue to rest, she began frantically Googling laws. She found that in our state, they can treat lights like a stop sign. She began triumphantly reading the law to me loudly, word for word, getting louder when I kept trying to tell her that I wasn't interested. At the end of her spiel, she gave me this incredibly arrogant look as if she was right. I just stared at her for a second and said that my life would be better without her. She got incredibly upset, shrieked at me until her voice was hoarse, and then packed a bag and left to stay with her parents. She has texted me all weekend demanding an apology, but I haven't responded. Did I do something unforgivable here? Story 8. AITA for telling my husband he needs to get a job after 1.5 years of finding himself. A 35F have been married to my husband 37M for 7 years. When we first got married, we both had full-time jobs, split the bills, and lived comfortably. About a year and a half ago, I got promoted at my job with a great pay raise. Around the same time, my husband started feeling unhappy in his work, and he asked if he could take a break from his job to figure out what he really wanted to do. I supported him 100%, and we agreed he'd take 6 months to find his path, reassess his career, and then get back to work once he felt more settled. Well, 6 months turned into a year and a half, and he's still not working, and things are becoming really difficult financially. My husband is still in the same figuring it out phase, and honestly, I'm not sure he's actually doing anything to change his situation. Every time I bring up him getting a job, even something part-time just to help out, he always nods and says, yeah, I'll get on it, but then nothing happens. It's like talking to a wall. He doesn't seem to take me seriously, and it's starting to feel like he's avoiding any real responsibility. Meanwhile, I'm working long hours to pay all the bills, the mortgage, groceries, utilities, everything, and it's tight. We used to be able to enjoy nice things like going out for dinners, taking small trips, or just buying things for the house. Now, all of that's out the window, and I'm struggling to make ends meet. I've had to cut back on so many things, and some months, I'm worried about being able to pay for even basic stuff like food and gas. I've talked to him about how hard it's getting, how he can't keep living like this, and he just says, I know, it's temporary, or I'm working on it. But then he continues doing the same thing, watching TV, hanging out with his friends, and acting like this isn't an urgent issue. I know he's not lazy in the sense that he wants to do nothing with his life, but I feel like he's not really making an effort to understand how serious this situation is. He'll half-heartedly talk about getting back into work or picking up some freelance projects, but there's never any follow-through. He keeps saying he just needs to figure out what he really wants to do, but in the meantime, I'm drowning under the pressure of keeping us afloat financially. I've asked him several times to just get some job, even if it's not his dream career, just to contribute until we're back on stable ground. And every time, he agrees, says he will, but then weeks go by, and he's still doing the same thing. It feels like he's living in denial while I'm struggling to hold our life together. I'm starting to resent him. It feels like he doesn't see how hard this is on me, how much I'm sacrificing, and how stressed out I am just to make sure we have a roof over our heads. It's starting to feel like I'm alone in this marriage, and every time I try to talk to him seriously about it, he brushes me off, promises to change, and then does nothing. AITA for finally telling him that he needs to get a job now or we're going to have serious problems. Should I keep being patient and supportive, or is it fair to push him to start pulling his weight after a year and a half of broken promises? Story 9. AITA for refusing to lend my brother any more money when he still hasn't paid me back and lives way beyond his means. A 30F have a younger brother, 27M, who's always been pretty bad with money. He has a good enough job, but he spends it like it's burning a hole in his pocket. Over the last couple of years, he's come to me multiple times asking for money, usually for rent, car repairs, or other emergencies. I've lent him thousands at this point, and I haven't seen a single cent back. But here's the thing, despite his so-called financial issues, he lives a way better lifestyle than I do. He's always going out to eat, buying the latest iPhone, going on trips with his friends, and splurging on designer clothes. Meanwhile, I'm the one cutting back on things, budgeting, and trying to save for my own future. It's beyond frustrating. A couple weeks ago, he asked me for more money to help cover rent again. This time, I told him no. I said he needs to pay me back before I even consider lending him anything else. He got really defensive and said I'm being selfish, and that because I'm doing better financially, I should be helping him out. But I'm tired of it. I feel like I'm enabling him to live irresponsibly, and it's starting to feel more like I'm being taken advantage of than helping family. Our parents found out, and now they're saying I'm being harsh, that family helps family, and I should cut him some slack because he's younger and still figuring things out. Thing is, I've never gotten any financial help from them, and I think that's why they don't really understand how much it's affected me, both money-wise and mentally. I get that he's my brother, but how am I supposed to keep giving him money when he just blows it and doesn't even try to pay me back? Am I really in the wrong here for finally saying no? AITA Story 10. AITA for refusing to let Karen neighbor use my pool after she demanded I follow her pool rules. So, a 3 for M live in a suburban neighborhood with a decent-sized backyard and a pool. I've always been friendly with my neighbors, including Karen mid-40s F who moved in next door about a year ago. She seemed nice at first, but as time went on, she started to show her true colors. Over the summer, Karen started coming over with her kids, asking if they could use the pool. At first, I didn't mind because I was usually outside anyway, and the kids seemed to enjoy it. But soon, things got weird. Karen began showing up unannounced, sometimes even when I wasn't home, and I caught her using the pool without my permission. One day, I came home to find Karen and several of her friends having a full-on pool party in my backyard, complete with snacks, music, and pool floats. I confronted her, and she acted like it was no big deal, saying, "Oh, you weren't using it." So I figured it was fine. I told her politely, but firmly that she needed to ask before coming over and that I wasn't comfortable with her just assuming she could use the pool whenever. Karen seemed annoyed but agreed to follow the rules. Then, last week, she took things to a whole new level. Karen knocked on my door with a typed-up list of pool rules that she wanted me to follow. Her list included things like no swimming after 5 p.m. because her kids have a strict bedtime, no loud music when her family is outside, mandatory weekend access for her and her kids, but only for their exclusive use. I thought she was joking at first, but she was dead serious. I laughed and told her there was no way I was following any of her rules for my pool. Karen got angry and called me selfish, saying that I was ruining the neighborhood spirit and being unfair to the kids. Now, she's been spreading rumors to other neighbors that I'm a bad guy for not sharing the pool. Some of the neighbors have even said I should just let it go to avoid drama. But I feel like this is insane. It's my pool, and she's acting like she owns it. AITA for refusing to let Karen and her kids use my pool after she demanded I follow her ridiculous rules. Update. So, I went ahead and installed a keypad lock on my backyard fence. Figured it'd solve the problem without needing another awkward convo with Karen. Plus, you all were right about the liability stuff. I really don't want to deal with any potential fallout if someone gets hurt using my pool. Of course, so Karen noticed the lock pretty much immediately. She was at my door, furious, saying I was locking out the neighborhood kids and treating her family like criminals. She went on about how I was being dramatic, and why couldn't I just let them use it like before? I told her straight up that I wanted some privacy and control over who was using my pool after all. It's my backyard, not a community park. She rolled her eyes and said I was being selfish, etc., etc. Honestly, I feel a lot better with the lock on now. It's a bit awkward with Karen, but I'd rather that than have her acting like my backyard is a public pool. Thanks again for the support. Story 11. AITA for not wanting to have my partner's child every weekend. My partner and I have been together for 7 years. We have a 2-year-old daughter together, and he has a 10-year-old son from a previous relationship. We have always had his son every second weekend and half of the holidays. In the last 3 months, he started bringing him home every weekend. It was never actually discussed with me, but okay, I understand you're trying to build a bond with your child, so I tried to get on with things. I also started a new part-time job for extra money around this time as a support worker. However, my partner is a very hands-off child when it comes to his son. He has a lot of childhood trauma he's never worked on, which has made it difficult for him to bond with him. This is where I have a problem. When my partner brings his son home, he plugs in the Xbox and leaves into it to go work on his boat all damn. Weekend penny and all parental duties of both children are left to me along with any household stuff that needs doing. It also impacts my daughter's routine when Tenyo is here because we have a dog that is set off every time Tenyo goes back and forth to see his neighbor friend or the friend comes here, which is about 4 times per nap. I tried for nearly 3 months to adjust to this new arrangement, but I'm at the stage of burning out. I'm losing the plot at the kids constantly because I'm so overwhelmed and just don't have the spoons. So 2 weeks ago, I honestly sat down and tried to explain to my partner that I can't manage every weekend. I'm burning out and I need the weekend in between to try and rest. The only time I have away from our daughter is 10 hours a week in which I'm working looking after somebody else and try to recollect my spoons for the week ahead. I was polite and kind and mindful and suggested if he wants to see him every weekend then that's great, but perhaps instead of bringing him home and ignoring him, he could pick him up and take him out for the day and do some activities and actually spend quality time with him, cause what's happening right now, isn't it? He said he understood, although he snorted and huffed throughout the short conversation. Fast forward to the weekend that's just been, my daughter was getting sick but managed to fight it off. I, however, wasn't as lucky and have been taken down by the flu. I got a call on Friday after work telling me he was on his way to pick up his son. I pointed out that we had about $30, which I needed to get home from work, and that there wasn't enough food for everyone for the weekend, which he entirely ignored. He then proceeded to come home and plug in the Xbox and piss off to the boat shed until after 9 p.m., leaving me to sort out dinner for kids and do our daughter's bedtime routine. At one point, I went out and asked if he really needed to get it done right that second and got basically shooed away. I went inside and had a cry because I'm just so at the end of my rope. The rest of the weekend passed with him, not in the boat shed, but just on the couch watching TV, not helping with any of the chores that needed doing while sick as heck did everything. I told him I needed to go lie down and rest, which I did do, but was met with a grumpy huff and look and I feel sick too. Last night after his son had gone home, I again told him I cannot cope with every weekend. I'm crumbling under all the expectations being placed on me from all directions. I'm not being the mother our daughter deserves because I'm so exhausted all the time and don't have the energy. Reminded him that it was never actually discussed with me in the first place, it was just decided and thrown at me. Reminded him that I have tried for nearly 3 months. Explained that I'm on the edge of a nervous breakdown because all of my time and energy is literally spent caring for other people and I have no time for myself. His response was that it's a hard position for him because I don't want to spend time with his son and he will let his son and mother know. Now I'm sitting here waiting for angry messages from his ex over at AITA